So regular meeting 216.
Agenda first.
Oh, excuse me.
Approval of agenda first.
Approval of the agenda. Everybody get the agenda? Yep. Any comments or clarifications or additions? We'll approve the agenda then, please. Voice vote.
I'll move it. Second.
Second or?
Move it. All right. Do a voice vote.
Yes.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Now the minutes. Any comments or corrections to the minutes? Thank you again.
They were beautiful as always. Thanks.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Motion second to approve the minutes of the last meeting. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion, minutes are approved.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
Zoom help.
And now, public comments. Do we have people out there who would like to comment?
Pam Boyd.
Hi, Pam.
Hi. Sorry, I wasn't muted. I thought I was muted when I got in. Good afternoon, Pam Boyd, an active Scio resident. Will, thank you so much for the taxpayer benefits from conservation easements. I've got two questions that maybe at some point in the process of the meeting, you'll be able to answer just in the normal scheme of things. Does Scio Township require an annual inspection of limited access purchase for these properties, and who's that responsibility? The second one is, back in the day when Scio first asked for funds in an election, I had in my mind that these funds were going to be used for the express purpose of public areas. Is that spelled out in the information when voters go to vote that, oh, by the way, some of this money is going to go to fund property that you can't access? And then finally, this goes to Barry. Barry, so who gets all of John Russell's Land Rover carcasses? Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much.
Barry, you want to quickly answer her questions?
We do monitor every conservation easement property once a year. It is my responsibility to do that these days, and submit a report. I think it's signed both by the landowner and by me. And for the most part, we don't have any problems with that. We did have one problem with that, and that was resolved through a legal proceeding. And I'm digging out the ballot language as we speak here, but I'm pretty sure that it states that, let's see if I can find this one here. This is the 2012 renewal language, but it mirrored the original 2012 language and the 2000, whatever it was, 20 renewal language, which says, for the purpose of continuing to fund the voluntary purchase of land or interests in land throughout the township. And to preserve all kinds of farmland, open space, wildlife habitat, and so forth. There's no statement about whether there would be public access in at all.
Okay, that's, I'll have to think on that. It's not that it's bad, and Will, your reasons for conserving I think are really good. I just think it doesn't tell the whole story to taxpayers and voters, that interest in land means it's not walkable. But okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, Pam. Anybody else?
Kathleen Brand has her hand up. Who is it? Kathleen Brand has her hand up.
Yeah, Kathleen, go ahead.
Hello, this is Kathleen Brand, Scio resident. First, I want to thank Pam Boyd. Those are really thoughtful comments and questions. Secondly, I had a question about a follow-up to the property on Miller Road that LPC had a purchase agreement on, and it's now reported that property has been sold. And I recall from a recent meeting that the LPC attorney was going to contact that landowner to try to assert some rights in that. Will you be giving an update on that situation?
We did, I think, last month.
Okay, maybe I missed it.
It's been clear, but I can, if you want, just say, you know, we consulted with our attorney. We discussed various options. The seller's attorney was not cooperative. And after further discussion with Township General Counsel, we decided to just drop the matter and to contact the new owners of the property and see if we can work with them.
Okay. Thanks for that update. I missed that somehow. And then finally, there is a meeting this evening in Township Meeting Hall that is a joint session with the Board of Trustees, the Planning Commission, and the DDA. I would encourage members of this commission to attend that. It's been my experience in the past that there have been missed opportunities by the Planning Commission that they are not collaborating with this group. A classic example is Heritage Woods. That property was predetermined as highly targeted for conservation, and what ended up happening is at a time for renewal of updates to the master plan, our planning consultant, Doug Luan, offered to that developer that they could provide inputs to the master plan. And surprise, surprise, that property became eligible for PUD development, which to me was not at all in line with the verbiage of the master plan. So if you could assert some of your interests, that would be, I think, worthwhile. Thanks so much.
We will have a member of our commission in attendance.
Well, Jonathan Greenberg has his hand up.
Okay, Jonathan?
Hey, hi, how's everybody doing today? Don't answer that, it's a rhetorical question. I wanted to just double click on what Kathleen just brought up. I think it's, there have been quite a few missed opportunities. And so I'm glad to hear that you will be participating tonight. Out of curiosity, what is there? Are all the members of this board residents of Scio Township?
Yes.
Yes, we have to be.
Okay, thanks very much. I'm asking all the boards because I understand that there's a number of folks here serving who don't either have a business or residence in Scio Township, and just want to make sure that we're not letting people who are no longer residents here voice their opinions and have influence on how our land is treated. So thank you for the confirmation, and I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you. Rob? Rob Patterson? I believe the land has been leased for agriculture, is that right?
The site.
The fire station site?
Station.
Yeah, we have acquired land that was part of one of our previous purchases, and then much of it was resold to the Vestergaards. I'm sure you're familiar with that. And a certain, I think 9 acres
Yeah.
was reserved for possible fire station. So that has been excluded from the sale to Vestigard and has been made available to the township. And it was agricultural land, and I believe it's continuing to be used for that purpose.
And that purchase was not made with dedicated millage.
It wasn't
funds.
our funds that actually bought that 9 acres, so we don't have control over, how it's used.
But Rob, are you also thinking about Station 3 potentially down the future?
Thank you for that suggestion, Rob. Any other comments? Anybody on the screen there?
I see no one's hand raised.
Okay, thank you all for participating in our meeting. If you would now mute your Zoom panels. Next thing, do we have the sustainability people online here?
Yes, we're here.
Hi, Kyle.
How's it going? Is it all right if I share my screen?
Yeah, please do.
Well, if you have permission, try it.
Yeah, that's more, okay, I think I do. Here,
Yeah, all right, you're on track there.
this is good?
Loading. Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so, hi, everyone. For those of you who don't know us, I'm Kyle. I'm here with Zoe as well. We're both interns with the Environmental Sustainability Task Force for the summer. We were also part of the master's project team that worked with them from the University of Michigan. And we're just here to talk about the Environmental Sustainability and Climate Action Plan, which is forthcoming, soon to be approved, hopefully by the Board of Trustees, and just kind of discuss with you all how it's applicable to you as members of LPC, and just give some general background. So to get into it, like I said, we'll give some background on the task force, what they've done over the past 2+ years, a lot of great work. Then get a little more into the Climate Action Plan itself, just a general overview of how it was made, what's included, different sections, things like that. And then more into how it applies specifically to LPC, information, goals, strategies that are directly applicable to you all. And finally, next steps, what you can do going forward as members of LPC to help make this plan work. And also just as individuals, residents of what you can start doing now. Okay, so as I mentioned, a little background. So in the summer of 2022, the Board of Trustees passed a climate emergency resolution. And among other things, this tasked the Environmental Sustainability Task Force, ESEF, with coming up with specific sustainability and climate goals that aligned with the goals of the county. And to do this, they created the Climate Action Plan, the SCAP. And the goal of this was, like I said, to meet the goals of the county, but also the state and national climate goals, as well as just creating a sustainable Scio Township community. So, yeah, and again, a little background on the task force. originally, and it was broken up and still is actually into 5 different working groups. Our volunteers from the township, really great, hardworking people that got together in these 5 groups: natural ecosystems and food systems, energy and buildings, transportation, mobility, materials and waste, and climate, resilience and emergency preparedness. And these groups came together, pooled their ideas, came up with initial goals and strategies and things that ultimately turned into what is included in the final version of the SGAP, which is currently up for approval by the Board of Trustees. So now I'll turn it over to Zoe to talk a little bit about our master's project.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you, Kyle. Yeah. So like Kyle said, he and I joined the task force in spring of 2022, I believe, through our master's project with 3 other students. We were tasked with creating a community engagement strategy for the township. To do this, we developed a survey that engaged Scio residents so we could get their feedback on the plan. We conducted interviews with township interest groups to get additional feedback. And then in that following fall, we analyzed that data and compiled it into a report for the task force. So the plan itself. Yeah, these are some overview points I'll just read off. The SGAP was created in order to achieve the township's sustainability goals, including reaching carbon neutrality in township operations by 2030 and community-wide by 2035. The plan outlines objectives, actions, and strategies for implementation over the next 10 years, but focuses on the near term. We add, in order for the plan to have the most success, full township engagement is needed. This includes township staff leadership, support from township committees, and contribution from local residents and businesses. Cool. So these are the 7 focus areas that are actually included in the plan. And just for example, we have some descriptive quotes here. The transportation mobility states development of a safe, accessible, and comprehensive multimodal transportation system. You can see the rest here. Cool. So now we picked out a couple of the focus areas that we felt were the most relevant to LPC. The first one is the green infrastructure and natural ecosystem health focus area. The plan goes over the current state of green infrastructure, including the township land preservation millage and the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Master Plan. And then it also includes some areas to take further action and focuses primarily on green space. Underneath green space, they include some subtopics with descriptions of each. Some examples I have here include stormwater management, urban heat island effect, and enhancing soil biology. And you can learn more about each of these subsections by reading the plan. This quote in the bottom right, yeah, not quite. I pulled straight from the plan. It just says the Scio Township zoning ordinance needs a sustainability lens update to employ current research in eliminating impervious surfaces, tree canopy protection, invasive species, and landscape planning. I also wanted to note really quick a couple projects that Norm Roller is working on with the Parks, Preserves, and Pathways Committee. These include trying out new satellite land cover mapping technology to determine if Scio zoning ordinance is affecting environmental sustainability of the township. For example, whether the ordinance is reducing impervious surfaces and increasing tree canopy over time. And then the other project involves using landscape level spatial metrics to detect how the arrangement of cover types affects an area's environmental sustainability. And yeah, if you'd like to know more about those projects, you can reach out to Norm Roller directly. Okay. Cool. So yeah, the next section we thought was the most relevant to LPC is the water resources, protection, and health. This focus area has 3 main sections covering groundwater, municipal water, and surface water, along with ways to improve the quality of each of these. So for groundwater, we all know the dioxane plume is a big issue. two strategies that the plan covers to mitigate this issue is one, to continue providing method 522 testing of private wells within the designated plume area, and two, to support the Coalition for Action on Remediation of Dioxane. The section on municipal water discusses both indoor and outdoor water efficiency. For indoor, the plan encourages installation of low flow water fixtures. And for outdoor efficiency, the plan suggests developing an education program to encourage water conservation for residential, commercial, and institutional sectors. And again, these are just examples. There are many other actions that the plan discusses in the bulk of it. And finally, for the surface water, the plan argues for a continued collaboration with the Huron River Watershed Council to improve the health of watersheds. Okay.
Cool. Oops. There we go. Yeah, so one last section we thought was relevant to you as members of LPC was regenerative agriculture and local food systems. And so in the plan, it states that the goal of this section is to ensure long-term sustainability of agriculture and food production in Scio. And a big part of this involves making sure agricultural land is healthy and protected from environmental degradation and stressors. And so the goals of this section include identifying unsafe practices, production and processing, and finding and developing remediation policies and strategies, reviewing ordinances and best practices in order to prevent environmental degradation and restore freshwater resources, reviewing drainage, detention, and control policies to ensure best practices, and in general, just expand knowledge regarding land and distribution of production. And so just in regard to resources and time frame, information provided federally and from state organizations as well as local institutions like U of M, EMU, Scio residents themselves is immensely helpful. And these goals, which again, you could look more closely at by looking at the plan, have timeframes from some near-term goals for the next year to 3 years to others that span 5+ years. Here, I think one of the biggest things we want to drive home with these presentations to everybody is just how important it is to get involved as members of these township commissions as the plan is hopefully soon to be approved to make sure it works and can be implemented in Scio. And of course, to do this, it's important to familiarize yourselves with the focus areas, with the goals, some of which we mentioned, but some more to just look through this plan and understand those goals to see and understand how it applies to you. Advocate for the inclusion of SGAP goals in future LPC plans and initiatives. Work and collaborate with other township committees and commissions because this plan, these goals can't be accomplished working as individual commissions and with no collaboration. And finally, to ask questions because like I said, this task force has been incredible. It's made up of so many great volunteers, so many people answer your questions, help achieve these goals. And it's important to make sure that this plan is really well understood because there's a lot of great stuff in it. And just kind of a take-home message, looking outside of just being members of LPC, you're also residents of Scio. And something that we've advocated for in our master's project and now as interns is just getting people involved with this plan as individuals. And one of the big things you could do is be an early adopter. We have some examples here, you know, installing solar, taking classes to become a master composter, planting native plants, considering buying an EV, reducing single-use plastics, helping others get involved, and just in general being a leader. Obviously, nobody could do everything. Not everything fits for every individual, but just doing your role as a Scio resident and becoming an early adopter of this plan in and of itself is a huge help. Yeah, that's all we have for our presentation. I guess we'll open it up to a discussion or any questions, but thank you for having us.
Anyone have questions for Kyle or the group? I'm curious, Kyle, your group, are you still in effect and studying? Do you have a time duration? Have you finished your project with this report?
Gotcha. In terms of our master's project, yes, we finished that. There was actually a group of 5 of us, and we all graduated in the spring, wrapped all of that up. We worked on, like we mentioned, the community engagement aspect. Now Zoe and I are continuing just over the summer, doing a lot of presentations like this with other township commissions and board of trustees, just to kind of create more buy-in now that the plan is mostly finalized and up for approval.
If I could just add a little bit.
Yes, Jen.
We are having a public hearing with the planning commission on.
Speak up a little bit, Jim.
Yeah, sure. We're having a public hearing. Yeah, it's kind of loud, it's right. Yeah, a public hearing at the planning commission meeting on August 28th. And we're hopefully we can approve it with, we're asking people to, so if anyone on this committee wants to go through some of the action steps or something and suggest something, we are taking specific, recommendations or, hopefully after this public hearing and planning commission recommendation for approval, it will then go to the board of trustees. So it is in kind of its last basic form for approval.
Is this essentially the document that you'll be seeking approval for? I asked up the front desk if they had any copies and they didn't. Where could people actually get a copy?
Yeah, but they don't have printed copies, but if you go to the Environmental Sustainability Task Force page on the website, there's a link there to that document.
Okay.
And you can download it or, yeah. And the easiest way actually is to download it and, just make some suggestions on it.
Read it on your computer.
Yeah.
Anybody else, questions?
Yes, I have one thing. So some of those some of the implementation items are easier to understand than others, or some, I know more about them. But for instance, installing solar, I think it helps to have a whole bunch of people, right? Decide, well, we'd like to look into solar and it's less expensive. So what would be helpful to me as a homeowner is some township initiated, how to, I guess, for anyone interested in installing solar to see if we can make it affordable.
One of the things that we're doing is in parallel with this plan going forward is creating pages on the website for the specific actions that people can take. Because with the township itself, the majority of our greenhouse gas emissions are us, it's the residents. We don't have a lot of large buildings, most of it is single family. So we're really focusing on what can residents do. And for instance, we don't have the staffing to do a solarized program. However, Ann Arbor makes their solarized program available to anyone in Washtenaw County. So getting the word out that you contact Julie Roth in Ann Arbor with the solarized program, and you get 10 people and you get a 10% discount, and you can go through that process.
And that will be on the website
We're just building those pages.
Great.
Yeah. And so for each of those, for water, for regenerative agriculture, all of those, the different focus groups will have their own page on the website with resources that people can go to. Yeah.
All right, well, thank you, Kyle and group, for your presentation, and Jan for coming, and good luck with all your meetings to come over this.
Yeah, and look forward to it. There are a couple things I just wanted to highlight too is one, both Tim and Dana Doherty are, we're spinning off sort of the regenerative agriculture and local food systems group. And one of the things they're doing is actually doing a survey of what the farms are producing in Scio. So we have a better understanding of what agriculture, because there's agricultural land and there's productive agricultural land. So they're trying to quantify that, which I think will be very interesting information for you too. The other thing is how we want to move forward with actually implementing this plan. And that is pulling together a group that will meet quarterly that will include a representative from this committee to sort of say, okay, what initiatives are we putting forth and how can we collaborate to, because obviously a 2030 goal and a 2035 goal are going to come very fast. So look forward to continuing working with you because, hey, land preservation and carbon sequestration go hand in hand. Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, yes, Kyle.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, excellent presentation. While we're talking reports of other commissions, let's see, we're gonna have a quick report on planning. You sort of gave it to us and were you gonna talk about it? Was there anything relevant to LPC at planning?
Joyce, Jen. Jen, anything LPC related? We're gonna be talking about Jackson.
Primarily the Jackson Road corridor, yeah, and you guys, I mean, further as we move west on Jackson, in a nutshell, what we're doing is looking at, again, the Jackson Road corridor primarily within the sewer district, okay? And the whole idea is to promote development there, including multifamily development and, you know, how does it become a transit corridor and relieve development pressure outside of the sewer district. And we are updating, there are two things that we need to collaborate on with the zoning piece. One is we're thinking about taking the density bonuses out of the PUD outside of the sewer district. That's a big change. And that will,
Would you make
yes.
be a little more clear on that density bonus?
Okay, so what that is, there is a density bonus that we cannot remove, and that's the open space density bonus, which is it's also a state kind of requirement for planning and zoning.
What is it?
And so what that means is if you cluster, if you cluster your development and leave more open space, you can build more units than you could if you just plunked them down.
Tighter.
Yeah. So there is a small density bonus for doing that, but there are larger density bonuses that we want to employ in the sewer district so that one, it can be more multimodal, multi-use, multimodal with its transportation, et cetera, and try and relieve some of the development pressure, outside the sewer district. So that can affect, land prices and so forth, because basically the density that you can develop, affects the price of the land. The other thing is we do not right now in Scio Township allow solar as a primary use. And we are going to be working at some point in time to allow that. And we are going to use the, Sarah Mills did a document about solar, and I can actually I can give you that, a link to that document, but it talks about, community solar, which is 5 megawatts or less. And the other thing is identifying some opportunities for community solar in Scio Township. Because one of the things that there is a lot of pressure on, prime agricultural lands, and utility scale solar. So that if we can plan for as much solar as possible within our own community, it also relieves some of that pressure on prime agricultural land. So those are kind of two, I would say, initiatives that certainly would impact this committee. And then ongoing work. If you know anyone else that would like to participate, especially in the local food systems and agriculture group, we're going to be building that portion of the task force up because it's great. Dana and Tim have wonderful connections within the farm community, and I think we'll be able to engage that those stakeholders much more effectively than we have in the past.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you, Jan.
Thanks, Jan. All your work.
All right, report on parks, pathways and preserves. Liz, have you met recently?
The meeting yesterday was canceled, but we did have our
Walkthrough.
yesterday morning walk through Sloan Preserve, and the stewards, the summer stewards showed the new paths that they've put
Pathway's
in.
great, isn't it, with the locks?
And they've put signage up, and they've, they have little color coded trails and arrows, and they've done that in a number of preserves, so they've really done a nice job. They recommended that Scio keep at least 2 summer people on the stewardship job, like fund those positions, because as you all know, these trails will grow in right away. They've done heavy work, opening up and creating some new trails in the township this summer. But, and so then the other part of it is next Wednesday, Ella and Bria, who are the two summer research assistants, are going to give their presentation. That's going to be here at 4:00. And so I recommend you all come if you can. That all of the interns have done incredible work, and Ella and Bria have compared data that they've collected this year to data this is in West Scio collected 2 years ago. So it's really cool, some of the things they found. So this is a way that LPC and parks can collaborate. So hope you all can come.
Just relevant to development of our parks and preserves, there's 2 major documents sitting out there on the table in the entryway from Washington Engineering. I'm amazed at how much specification has gone into an entrance in a parking lot. And clearly how much money is being involved in this. I mean, there's contractors' documents this thick for each of the parking lots, plus this enormous multi-page blueprint of what they're taking it seriously. Clearly, it's going to be a very nice job. It looks like if they follow the plans.
Also, I just want to say, I guess in relation to what Pam or Catherine said earlier, sometimes these properties that we get are not open to the public initially, but the plan is that we try to acquire additional properties and connect them and make them open to the public. So there is value in acquiring them while they're available, even though they won't immediately open to the public. I mean, Curler is just now opening to the public. It's been a while. But the goal was always to make that available. So it's a reason to, keep voting yes. This initiative comes.
Right.
Well, that's a good point, Liz. And when we look about maintaining, supporting carbon sequestration and healthy water, and pollinators, that all depends on preserving land, be it public or not.
Yes.
So
Right.
there's always a benefit to the public, even if the public doesn't block it.
Okay, thank you, Liz. for the
Yes,
report.
that's it. Yes.
Briefly, BOT, anything relevant here?
Not to us. We had a fire hearing 2 days ago, and then last week in July, there was a special hearing, public hearing about the Lithia development, which proposes to be all electric, a PUD, the old American Broach, with a EV charging station. And the discussion's going to center a lot around sufficient public benefit.
Oh, okay, all right, thank you. I think we've dealt with sustainability task force, unless there's anything more to be said about that. Let's go to open session consultants report. Yes. Liz, did this get posted, this open session report?
Yeah.
So that was the first time that we did that. That was in
Yes.
response to
Yes.
previous comments. So there's not much there of content, but I'll run down this list here quickly, but we'll continue to do.
But this is typical of your open session consultants. reports
Yeah, I mean,
every
sometimes we
time.
have properties under contract and
Right.
that will be listed, but we don't at this time. But that will be publicly available as part of the packet ahead of the meeting. Lake Erie RCPP funds are continuing to look like they're not going to come through. Unfortunately, that was the $7.4 million that we had dedicated between all the local partners here the process to access the funds has just been bogged down and the Greenbelt staff are taking the lead on that, but they're very frustrated and I'm gonna give it a 5% chance of actually succeeding, which is very unfortunate because we were hoping to use those funds for some smaller projects or some unique projects here in Scio. We submitted a couple of two properties for the May application round for the agricultural conservation easement program. It looks like one of those is going to be funded and probably one won't, but we can reapply the one that won't for the November round. I have gone through since we last met and redone the mailing list of all the landowners who have interesting properties here in the township. I think it's 75 or 76 landowners. And I just got that done last week, so I'm gonna prepare a letter, an application and send that out to them. We did the beginning of the program, but we've had so many great applications either from earlier mailings or contacts or just they just come in the door. We haven't had to do that, but now we're gonna go out and do that once again. So that's sometime, probably next month I'll get around to doing that. I sent you all a bulletin from the Federal Natural Resources Conservation Service regarding proposals for funds from the Inflation Reduction Act. They were looking for information from entities that have participated in the ASEP or other programs in recent years. And in collaboration with our other local partners here, we did submit a response to that. We'll see what comes of it, but there's potentially an enormous sum of money available out there through the IRA.
Is the application site specific and was it reference to particular parcels?
So what we submitted was just, they were looking for information about how those kinds of funds could be used to purchase conservation easements on properties that were under threat from conversion from agricultural open space to residential or commercial type developments. And also looking for ideas on where there could be greenhouse gas emission reductions or conserving land that would be suitable for conserving for carbon sequestration. Fortunately, a couple of years ago, Washtenaw County Parks did an analysis of all the remaining lands, undeveloped lands in the county, and that's the map. They were looking for a map to show where these areas would be located, and we had that. I'm not sure anybody else has that. Maybe some other places around the state do. So we'll see what comes of it again, but it's certainly conceivable that they'll say, boy, these guys got their act together. They've already done all their priorities. They're working collaboratively. They have all these dedicated villages. Let's put a whole bunch of money into Washtenaw County or into Michigan that we'd have access to. We'll see. But we did submit, I think, a robust response to that request. I've got a meeting next week that was initiated by the Dexter Township Supervisor and Huron River Watershed Council with folks in the city of Ann Arbor that have several initiatives underway that may result in some additional funds being available beyond the Greenbelt millage, which has another 10 years yet to levy. We'll see what comes of that also, but there's for example, a new water treatment plant that's being built in the city of Ann Arbor, and there's a climate action plan, and they want everything to be carbon neutral in the construction of the plant, as well as the anticipated operation of it. There will be carbon emissions, and so they're looking for ways to offset that. And of course, you can, like if you fly in an airplane now, you can buy carbon offsets from various entities. And I made the suggestion, well, why don't we spend that money locally and help us conserve lands within the Huron River watershed from which they're going to get their drinking water source through Barton Pond. We'll buy woods and farmlands and easements on these things. That would help keep the money locally and conserve land within the watershed. And a couple of other things like that. So we'll see where that goes, but it sounds like an initial positive for all of us, not just, again, Dexter Township initiated this, but I think it could apply for everybody that's in the watershed.
And the money comes out of the federal pots.
No, this would all be city money.
City.
Yeah, either through their millage or You have a new climate, resilience plan, millage in the city, and other means. I don't know all the details of that. I'll learn more about it next week and I'll let you know next month. Mary here from the staff sent around press release about the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund that was included as part of the packet. Also a link to that article. And Will asked me just to give you a quick thumbnail sketch on that. We haven't really tapped into that source of funds from the state of Michigan very much. The only time we've used it to date that I know of, certainly we've only used it is for the first Sloan Preserve purchase, the first 33 acres. There's two parts to the state trust fund. One of them is for acquisitions of land for public ownership and use. And one of them is for development projects. So with a current Parks and Recreation plan that's been approved by the DNR, we can apply for those funds. We could certainly use that for acquisitions. And certainly Anna and the PPP folks can apply for funds to develop parklands as well, for all kinds of things. This is money that comes from a trust fund that was created when oil and gas drilling was permitted on state-owned properties back in the 1970s. And over the years, this principal has grown to something like $600 million. It's some enormous amount of money. And every year, the trust fund board, which is appointed by the governor, has access to somewhere between $20 and $30 million, depending on how investments go, based on that principle. And that again can be used for acquisitions or for development projects. So it's a great source of funds. The challenge with it is that it's basically a 2-year process from the time that you apply, which is April 1 of the year, till we actually have access to the funds. So we have to have very patient landowners if we're going to be buying land for development projects. It's just they wait until the funds become committed and then they can expend the funds from there. So that's a quick and dirty on the trust fund. I can tell you more about it if you want to know.
So we don't even know we don't even have a commitment so that we can say reimburse us. Right? We
would have to submit a property to be purchased.
Yeah. And then wait a whole 2 years before even knowing whether they approve it or
the process is the trust fund board reviews, the staff review all the applications and score them and rank them, just like you all do. And then they make recommendations at the end of the year, basically in December, from the April 1 deadline, about which properties should be funded or which projects should be funded if they're development grants.
Do municipalities apply?
Only municipalities can apply. That's correct.
Can they join together? Can they band together?
Sure, but I would say the lead agency has to have an approved Parks and Rec plan.
No, I mean, like could Scio and Dexter say, hey, let's band together and try to get the blood and parcel, the whole enchilada.
Right.
Sure, that is possible. And we did explore that a couple of years ago when we were looking to purchase that should be unnamed property. But
I named it. I mean, but it's not, that's not the current proposal.
That's a possibility.
That's not the current proposal, but it's a big parcel that's of interest in multiple municipalities. I won't name it. I'll just say where it's located on the.
Yes,
right on the board.
We don't know what it is. Yes, we could apply for that next April. So after the trust fund board makes their recommendation in December, it goes to the legislature, which has to pass a bill. And the article that was provided to you all was the approval, the signature of the governor on the bill, which just happened a couple of weeks ago. So it took another 8 months basically for the legislature to pass the bill. So now contracts can be submitted for those entities that were on the list of properties, and now they can start spending money and buying land or doing their projects. So it's an 18-month to 2-year process. So if we were going to apply that property or anyone, it would be next April of 24, and then it would be sometime in the summer to fall of 25 before we'd actually have the funds available. So you have to have patient landowners.
Would you say though that it would be more suitable to parks then for future projects? Or you said acquisition or parks and projects?
Yes, so I mean, we can take advantage of this and they'll cover up to 75% of the appraised value of the property. That's the upside. You get more points, of course, if you ask for less. So we can do it for purchasing property, but the parks folks can also say, well, if you want to put in, a parking lot or a ball field or.
So they could look at the long term and.
Yeah, and I sure hope that they all know about this.
I don't know.
It's a prominent funding source. It has been for 40 or 50 years now.
That sounds like a good potential program for that little peninsula of land by the railroad tracks across from Tubbs Road.
John.
And in fact, the city or county had a trust fund grant to buy that property.
Oh,
But there's a deadline for expending the funds of a couple of years, and it can be extended, I think, once, maybe twice. But they ran out of time, and so the trust fund grant was not utilized. It was landowner negotiations just went on forever and it died. Fortunately, we have other ways of funding the purchase of property like that because that's a greenbelt property, that's a county property, and so forth. But having the trust fund pick up 50 or more percent of the purchase price will be certainly beneficial. So the county went through that whole process, got the grant award, and lost it.
I would propose trying that again.
Yes, and I'm curious about how competitive this is because I'm just looking at all the projects that were awarded for 2022, and there's not many. There's only 2 in our region.
It has to be a unit of government that applies. It can't be a land conservancy, and it can't be an individual person. And you have to have your Parks and Recreation plan, and you have to have a property, or you have to have a project.
Right.
And if you don't have those, then you don't apply. And we really haven't had a suitable project, or we've had too short of a timeline, and we have other funding sources, locally here, so we've not tapped into that.
Got it.
It is competitive. Not everything gets funded.
Yeah.
And the funding amount varies, as I said, from $20 to $30 million a year, depending on how investments go. The one time that we applied, we got the funding.
Can we purchase a piece of property ahead of time?
No, and get reimbursed? No.
Oh, you can't do that. You can't get reimbursed? Oh, bummer. Okay, I was wondering.
It used to be, initially, I remember, you couldn't even enter into a purchase agreement for the property.
Oh.
That's, I believe, changed now. And so you had to have a landowner who was willing to
Yeah,
wait around for 18 months or
That's a
longer
long time.
without any sort of commitment from them. And I know of one property in this county, a very prominent one, where they sold it before the trust fund award came through. And it's still in private ownership and it hasn't been developed, but the opportunity was lost because, and I think enough people said, you gotta let us get into a purchase agreement, otherwise we're gonna lose these properties. There's enough examples of that until the rules changed for that.
So this property that I mentioned, the guy's been trying to sell it forever and not having progress. Would it be something appropriate for you to approach that person? About if.
Sure. Let's talk about it afterwards.
Okay.
And then the last thing I wanted to hit on was I sent you a couple of financial statements that San Diego provided for me yesterday. I just sent those today. That wasn't part of the original package. I just remembered that I wanted to do that. And she was kind enough to respond very quickly. So one of them shows that the fund balance for our millage account is a little over $1.9 million at this point. And the other one shows what the expenditures are from that account to date, which are fairly minimal. I did want to point out that so far, this is through July 31st, I believe. Right. That there has been $7,800 expended for cost allocation. I do have those figures now. And that is all for my open session report.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Just go over quickly, who's going to be at the next meeting, which is September 14th? We all available for that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so.
All right, looks good. We've instituted a second public comments period. Is there anybody out there who would like to make a comment?
Yes, please. Pam Boyd? Oh,
Okay,
John,
Pam.
I'm just jumping on.
Pam and Rob both. Go ahead, Pam.
These are both for Liz. Liz, I would like to let you know, I have emailed Anna Cohn asking for the meeting next Wednesday to be on Zoom. Thank you for bringing that up on that this meeting on the birds is next week. But just to let you know too, I would like to attend via Zoom. And then also thank you very much for the expanded board packet. It was noticed and appreciated, and thank you very much.
Well, Pam, there is a Zoom link and I will make sure that it's on the, but I know Anna got your message and she has a Zoom link ready.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So it'll be on the.
I'll put it, well, I mean, I'm sure she will put it on the website if she hasn't already, but I know she has put one together. Yeah.
Good.
So you can come.
All right.
Well, I already put it in my calendar.
Oh, good. All right.
Rob? All right, thank you for that suggestion.
Do we know anything about this?
Is there a
I
map
don't.
of those
I'll
pieces,
ask
Rob?
Yeah, we'll have Barry get on that. Thank you, Barry. All right, I think then maybe are there any other public comments? Hearing none.
We did also agree that I would do a quick summary of what's going to be in the closed session. So we have updates on a number of properties. We have one property for which a funding commitment has been made from the Greenbelt program. And so there will be discussion about whether we want to cover the remainder of that. We have two properties to score, two new applications to run through our scoring system.
Okay, good.
That's basically it.
Okay, good preview. I'm excited. Can we then have a motion as per the language here to
Yeah, I'd
go
like
into
for
closed
someone
session?
to read this language as they make the motion.
Would you like to read it? Do you have the agenda?
So like I move to go into closed session, et cetera.
I'll do it. I move to go into closed session for discussion of pending property evaluations pursuant to section 15-268D of the Michigan Open Meetings Act, specifically to consider the purchase or lease of real property up to the time an option to purchase or lease that real property is obtained. Do we have a second?
I second.
Would you accept a friendly amendment that says, and further pursuant to the Scio Township Land Preservation Commission bylaws, section 5 meetings, wherein closed sessions are allowed for considering the purchase of lease of real property prior to the time that an option to lease or purchase such real
That's a
property is
statute.
secured.
That is checking, it's the same.
I know, but it's an
language,
independent
statute.
basis for going into closed session. I
Well, we
think,
did do the basis that's in state law.
okay, all right. Then I will withdraw my friendly amendment.
All right, well, there may be reason to further discuss this matter, but let's just go into closed session. All in favor of going into closed session?
Wait,
as
we're
per
gonna
the-
do a roll call vote on that?
Yes.
Under
yes, we are.
discussion, I would say I'm gonna be voting yes for this because I believe that our bylaws also empower us to go into closed session. The bylaws that the Township Board of Trustees approved back in 2011 as an additional basis and a basis which mirrors the state law Open Meetings Act.
Okay.
That's why I'll be voting yes.
You want to call the roll?
Janine,
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Will?
Yes, with the provision that we may not be bound by the Michigan Open Meetings Act as per Jim Fink. Discussion today.
Okay, and Wiseman is a yes.
All right,
So
we're in
we
closed
have-
session. Have we precluded the visitors?
No, I wanted to have this
Thank you all.
portion be public.